Oh, it was so fun. We finally got a close game of the series. Game 5 featured 14 lead changes. The first 4 games of the series had a combined 9 lead changes, none in Game 4. And no team held a double-digit lead in Game 5. The first 4 games of the series all decided by double digits. So Bruce Brown and Ryan Russillo, these teams actually decided they wanted to play in a competitive basketball game last night. We were better off for it, but the big story coming out, Kawhi Leonard says he's going to be able to play tomorrow night in Houston. Of course, he missed a lot of last night's game with the left ankle. How would you handle Kawhi in Game 6?
You know, it was reminiscent of 3 or 4 years ago, I believe it was, Tony Parker against Oklahoma City Thunder. Tony did something, Pop sent him in the locker room, said, you know what, let's let him heal up as much as he can during the course of a playoff series and get him fresher when we go back to San Antonio. So I thought that was the mantra there with Pop not playing him. He saw how he was out there shooting shots on one. He wasn't effective. He settled for a jump shot one particular play with James Harden on him with 4 fouls, and that's not like Kawhi.
Yeah, that play, I remember looking at it going, wait a minute, is he just exhausted all of a sudden now? And then when you go back and look at the post-game stuff, they go, once he's off of 1 foot, we knew he was done. And you're waiting, is he going to come back in? Here's the thing, we just had this with Toronto and Cleveland, right, guys? So Lowry has the ankle injury, who he said when he tried to push to get ready for Game 3, completely took him out of Game 4. Now, the difference here is Toronto wasn't winning that series, it didn't matter who they had. But with Kawhi in this spot, I do think we don't have the information right now, but there has to be a decision. Like if they think it's really bad, even though he said he's going to be good to go, you actually would be better off probably sitting him because Houston has a chance to beat you if they're just going to hit shots. And then you feel like, well, what if we have Kawhi out there and then he's not as good as he would have been with the extra time off of Game 7?
60% Kawhi does nothing for them.
Well, no, 60% does something. It's just not in that series at that particular moment late in the game. He's not able to give you anything. Now with treatment, with rest, he's going to have something to give. And granted, it was a sprain. I mean, it wasn't something more severe than that. I think with a different tape job, more ice, foot elevated, all those wonderful things that will keep you up late night, it's good for him.
Unless he wakes up today, that thing's fat and bruised. We'll have to wait and see what happens.
Because it's wrapped. It's wrapped. Yeah.
Got it. With tape. The other Spurs to step up in Kawhi's absence, Patty Mills, Danny Green, Manu Ginobili combined for 48 points. I don't think you can count on that trio game in and game out. So what stood out to you about these guys last night?
Well, there's just the resiliency of Manu Ginobili in the beginning as far as a guy that hasn't had a big impact in the series, staying ready. We talk about how guys need to be ready. Patty Mills had to stay ready. But with Manu, it's the knowledge he has on the floor as far as what goes on in San Antonio. The fact that he was able to get to that left-hand layup, you have Capella on him. You don't know he wants to go left. But he's still crafty enough to get to his strong hand. Patty Mills having to log big minutes, whereas he's starting now. It's so different when you're coming off the bench for, say, 26 minutes, and now you're logging 30-plus minutes. And then Danny Green, what he did in the OT, it only shows the championship character that he has, understanding that you're never out of a moment. You don't know when your moment is going to come, but you must be ready for it.
Ryan, the role player's big.
Yeah, Ginobili's just a guy you trust so much. But the funny thing about this game is that if the Green shot doesn't go down and a Harden one does, and we're talking about Houston being up 3-2, there's a million things that San Antonio did last night that I don't like. So when you think about the way the bigs played, when you get Harden switched on to you, if you're Gasol or LaMarcus or even times Beverly at certain times, Bruce, like you and I are talking about it going, they won, but this is far from perfect. So it's great that the bench guys in a home game, especially guys that have been around, so it's not even home road with Green and Ginobili as much as it is for others, but, there was a lot of weird things that happened in last night's game.
It's one of those things as he's talking about LaMarcus being on the block. I don't ever consider myself to quote a lot of things that Shaq says, but when he talks about barbecue chicken for big men, that means ball in the post, back the guy down, put him in the basket if you have to. Do not settle for a jump shot. Pau Gasol, there's times where you got to be more demonstrative down low when you get the ball with a guard on you. That's the thing I think they missed.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, it kept happening, and you go.
I say the value of Tim Duncan. He was able, when D'Antoni was in Phoenix and they go small, Tim could stay on the floor. He wasn't getting blown by a lot of guys, but at the same time, when they had someone on him in the post, he put them in the basket. Barbecue chicken.
All right, Shaq getting quoted on SportsCenter. Quickly, Ryan, why do you think Harden struggled in overtime? Because he was not good.
San Antonio did something here, I thought, defensively that was great. They brought the defense way out. They extended it all the way out, so they're disrupting that high screen. And it was weird because it was happening and Houston was not adjusting off of it, having an outlet pass. And then at times when they didn't even bring it all the way out because they weren't setting the screen, Harden's waiting for Capella to come meet him. At one point putting his hands up going, where's the screen? What are we doing here? So it actually slowed down what Houston was trying to get into. And then all of a sudden Harden's looking at D'Antoni. D'Antoni's looking at his players. So there was a really weird kind of offensive stalling that had a lot to do with San Antonio, but they'd also missed 7 threes in a row.
You know, when you have the first half that you had of San Antonio, the way Harden was able to just get whatever he wanted, you have to do something differently. And that means let's pick him up higher. Let's see what happens if we try to exert a little energy. Picking up higher did a lot more as far as throwing a rhythm off of what Houston wanted to do.
Give credit to San Antonio for D'ing up on Harden in overtime. Now we see a Game 6. Will we see a Game 7? You can watch Game 6 on ESPN tomorrow night. These guys will be back in just a bit.